Welcome to Truth Over Trauma, where Christian adults come to move on from toxic relationships. I used to tell myself I was just being loyal, that I was being forgiving, that I was doing the right thing. But the truth was, I wasn't leaving. And if you're being honest, you probably already know what that feels like. You tell yourself you're strong. You tell yourself you're patient. You tell yourself this is what love looks like. But deep down, something feels off. Because you know how this ends, and yet you're still there. I remember one night specifically. It was around 2 a.m. The room was completely dark except for the blue light from my phone. I had just spent hours crying, telling God I was finally done, for real this time. I even typed out the message, "Don't contact me again." My thumb was hovering over the send button, and for a moment I actually believed I was free. Then my phone buzzed. One word. "Hey." And just like that, everything I had just said, everything I had just cried about, everything I knew was true, disappeared. My heart started racing, my hands went cold, and I felt this overwhelming sense of relief, like I could finally breathe again. I deleted the message. I replied. And just like that, I walked right back into the same cycle. Looking back now, that should have been the moment I woke up, but it wasn't, because I wasn't living in reality. I was living in what I call the beautiful lie. I kept replaying the beginning, the way they treated me in the first few weeks, the way they looked at me, the way they said things like, "You're different. I've never felt this way before. Maybe God brought you into my life." And I believed it, not because it was true, but because I wanted it to be. I built an entire version of them in my mind based on who they were in the beginning. And even when their behavior completely contradicted that version, I held on to it. I made excuses, constantly. Maybe they're just stressed. Maybe they had a hard childhood. Maybe they don't know how to love properly. Maybe if I just stay, if I just love them better, if I just be more patient, they'll become that person again. But they didn't. And if you're in this right now, you already know that. Because no matter how much you give, no matter how much you try, no matter how much you pray, the cycle doesn't change. It just repeats. And here's the part I had to face that I didn't want to admit. I wasn't staying because I loved them. I was staying because I was attached to the feeling they gave me in the beginning. I wasn't addicted to them. I was addicted to the potential, to the hope, to the idea that if I just held on a little longer, it would finally go back to how it started. But it never did. And that's when something shifted for me. I realized I wasn't waiting for them to change. I was waiting for them to give me permission to leave. I was waiting for one final moment, one final argument, one final betrayal that would feel big enough to justify walking away. But the truth was, I'd already lived through 100 of those moments. I just didn't want to accept it. And maybe that's where you are right now. You're waiting, not because you don't see the problem, but because leaving feels harder than staying. And there's a reason for that. What you're experiencing has a name. It's called a trauma bond, and it works like this. If someone treated you badly all the time, you would leave, no question. But when someone hurts you and then gives you moments of love, moments of attention, moments that feel like the beginning again, your brain gets hooked. you start chasing those moments. It's like a loop: pain, relief, hope, disappointment, over and over again. And before you realize it, you're not in love anymore. You're conditioned. And I had to be honest with myself about something else too. I was using my faith as a reason to stay. I told myself I was being a good Christian, that I was being patient, that I was showing unconditional love. But I wasn't. I was abandoning myself. Because God didn't call you to live in confusion. He didn't call you to live in anxiety. He didn't call you to stay in something that is breaking your spirit. Scripture says to guard your heart, because everything you do flows from it. And I wasn't guarding mine. I was handing it over again and again to someone who kept proving they couldn't carry it. There's a difference between forgiveness and access. You can forgive someone and still not allow them back into your life. Forgiveness is a command, but access is a decision. And I had to learn that the hard way, because the person I fell in love with wasn't real. It was a version of them that existed just long enough to pull me in. The person they showed me consistently, that was the truth. And I had to choose to believe their behavior over their words, because words are easy, but patterns don't lie. I also had to accept something even harder. You cannot heal in the same environment that made you sick. No matter how much you pray, no matter how much you try, staying in that cycle will only keep you stuck. I had to let go. Not because it didn't hurt, but because staying was costing me more. And if you're listening to this right now, I want you to be honest with yourself. Are you staying because this is right? Or are you staying because it's familiar? Because those are not the same thing, and one of them is keeping you stuck. So let me ask you this. Are you actually holding on to them, or are you holding on to the version of them you wish was real? If this resonated with you, comment below, "I am choosing my peace." And if you're ready to finally break this cycle, make sure you like and subscribe. You're not alone in this, and you don't have to stay stuck here.